There has been a lot of criticism tossed over at Marvel's Phase 4 because it had no direction. So what do the directors/brothers of Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War have to say about this? So this came from an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, where Joe and Anthony Russo reflected on their time and their work with the MCU. And they were asked about leaving the Marvel Studios fold and not working on the MCU since Avengers Endgame, and what they think about all the criticisms and the fact that many people believe that MCU is now over / possibly overrated and that there isn't much there to offer to fans. And Anthony Russo specifically said that if you look at the overwhelming success that they've had before, you can't really keep that up with everything because you have to rebuild. And he says for whatever reason, just because one film doesn't succeed in one area, but it succeeds in another, doesn't necessarily mean that the film is hated globally. And on top of this, Joe Russo comments saying that back in the day when he was younger, he used to be a fan of the old, early MTV, and he used to listen to U2. He was a huge fan of the band, loved it. But then when they got big, he found himself hating it because it wasn't the little thing that he loved in the beginning. But give it 10 years later, he refound his love for it, and it's one of his absolute favorite bands. And he believes that it's the same thing. People fall in love with the thing when they're 10, 12, 14 years old. And then when that thing isn't the same, they hate it. But eventually, they rediscover the love for it because things have moved on, they've grown up, and they realize that everything has to grow up just like you do. So they find themselves looking back and going, you know what, all those decades, yeah, they built up to this. This is what it's about. Wow, it's almost like Star Wars The Last Jedi and Luke. Or actually anything, really. It's like growing, right? Like the Hulk. He can't just forever be angry, smashy Hulk. That literally is not character development. So you kind of got to change that. Same with Thor. Despite not liking what they've done with Thor, I understand what they're trying to do with him. So it's there. And I appreciate that they said this. It's not that it's overrated or that people hate it. It's that people are so passionate about the thing they grew up on. And again, this is fact. The thing that you grew up on between the ages of 8 to 14, 15, that to you is your prime. That's the best thing ever, and that's what literally influences the rest of your life. And again, I can attest to this. You know, for me, I was watching things like early WWF Attitude Era and WCW, and those early 2000s comic book films that imprinted on me that make me love everything I love today. But somebody that's a little bit older than me, well, to them, it was a lot of 80s things, you know? RoboCop, things like that. So it is generational, but I like that they kind of talked about it in that way. It's like, whatever you loved when you were 10, that's what you think is the best, and chances are you're going to hate it as it grows up, but you'll come around to it. And certainly, we've seen a lot of people now back on the MCU hype train being like, of course, I knew Kang was coming. Scrub those videos. Fucking scrub them. Scrub those TikToks. Scrub them.